In the darkest nights, we find our light, battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together. Together we stand tall, united forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Oh, surviving together, victorious, and never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hey, everyone. How you doing today? The humidity and heat is finally down enough that I can be in my office without sweating buckets. So welcome to Surviving Together this Wednesday night. I hope you are all doing well. This is a safe space for trauma survivors to connect and build community on their healing journey, as well as providing trauma-related education for all. I hope you are well. Crystal is here. How are you, dear? I hope your day has gone well and that your week has been good so far. And to everyone who joins us from here on out. Today we're going to talk about positive childhood experiences. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is we've covered ACEs before, or adverse childhood experiences, and how studies have shown that there's a definite link between the number of adverse childhood experiences you have to later problems in adult with physical and mental and emotional health. And there's been research since the late 2010s that grew out of this. And as a result of the ACEs study, which was originally in 1995, they started it. I think they published everything in like 1998. And they started looking at, okay, well, what is the opposite of this, basically? How are kids going through adverse childhood experiences, but still doing well afterwards as adults? And in looking at this resilience of children, they came to term at first, and it was Dr. Patricia Bethel who in 2018 coined the phrase benevolent childhood experiences, or the BCE scale. And subsequently, BCE is also used sometimes, but PCE, positive childhood experiences, kind of came the next year in research that she did. And it seems that they dialed in their research in regards to positive childhood experiences. So in 2019, 2020, it became its own distinct research concept that people were looking at, just like they were looking at the ACEs and saying, okay, well, what's the correlation to adult mental health or adult physical health with these positive childhood experiences? Hey, Patty, how are you doing today? Crystal, you started a new Afghan. That's wonderful. That is wonderful. And I hope you have a great lunch with your dad. Now, Positive childhood experiences capture the protective, relational, and environmental experiences that you have when you grow up. And I'm going to go through the list of what the questions. There's 10 questions on the behavioral or the benevolent childhood experiences. They came up with 7, so they kind of combined a few for the positive childhood experiences. I'll go through them slowly, so if you want to follow along and score yourself, you may. I'll let you know how to score everything when I get done with the questions. But these are the questions that are asked of positive childhood experiences. Let me get down to them again. Okay. Now, in regards to these questions, you have some options and how you answer. You can answer never, a little of the time, some of the time, most of the time, all of the time, or you don't know. Those are your options. So the first question, and we're looking at before you're 18, before you turned 18. So we're going under 18, all our childhood. For how much of your childhood was there an adult in your household who made you feel safe and protected? Never, little of the time, some of the time, most of the time, all of the time, don't know. The next question, how often did you feel that you belonged at your high school? Never, rarely, sometimes, often, or very often, or don't know. Question 3, how often did you feel supported by your friends? Never, rarely, sometimes, often, or very often. How often were there at least 2 adults other than your parents who took a genuine interest in you? Never, rarely, sometimes, often, or very often, or don't know. Question 5, how often did you feel that you were able to talk to your family about your feelings? Never, rarely, sometimes, often, or very often. How often did you enjoy participating in your community traditions? Never, rarely, sometimes, often, very often, or don't know. And the last question, how often did you feel your family stood by you during difficult times? Rarely, never, rarely, sometimes, often, very often, don't know. Now, I went through these and I will admit that some of them were a little difficult for me in terms of deciding how I was going to record, what answer I was going to record, because my high school experience in terms of having friends was much different than pre-high school. In high school, I, kind of found a group of friends who I fell in with and I felt supported by. And I didn't have that pre high school. So, some of this was a little harder for me to score. Um, they did say that if you were homeschooled, um, and particularly for the high school years, that we're just discounting that question about school and friends. So, how do you score yourself? Well, you give yourself 1 point for every question that you scored some of the time, most of the time, all of the time. So sometimes, often, or very often. And you don't score if you said never, little, or you didn't have an answer to the question. And that gives you your PCE score. So a total of possible 7 points out of those questions. Hi, Indigo. How are you doing? Hi, Shannon. Hope you're doing well. Hope your fur babies are doing well. Echo, hello, hello, hello. Did I miss anybody else? No? Okay, great. So those are the PCE questions. And sorry, guys, I'm bopping back and forth between some screens here because I have my notes in different places. And let me get to the top of this where I have put my summary. Okay. Hey, Ben, how you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, what did they find when they started studying positive childhood experiences? Well, is it no surprise that they found in adults lower instances of depression, substance abuse, suicide, PTSD, and just generally people reported an overall better emotional state and social functioning ability, that the higher their PCE score was. What I found was very interesting is that with these, hey Crystal, how you doing? With these PCEs, they found that there was an offset effect on the ACEs. So even if you scored high on the ACEs, each of these PCEs that you had could offset the effects, the negative effects of the ACEs. So, in general, what the studies have shown, and there's been a multitude of them since 2019, 2020, have shown that the more love the kids are raised with, the more support kids have, not only family support, but social support, community support, the better they do, even in the face of adversity. Now, I know this doesn't sound like it's like a monumental, breakthrough thesis, right? It just makes sense. But science is science. And so through their studies, they were able to make these linkages. And what they also found was that there was a decrease in, just like with the adverse childhood effects, the ACEs, found an increase in obesity and chronic illness and heart disease, that there was a correlation decrease with the higher number of PCEs that somebody had. And I thought that this was really important to bring about and make everybody aware of, because I know that when we went through the ACEs and we talked about the correlation to negative health effects, physical and mental health effects, I was thinking about my kid and I was adding up his score. And it was devastating to me to know what his likelihood, and it's only a likelihood, it's not a mandate, it's not an absolute. Just because you have a high ACEs score doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to have chronic illness or be suicidal, but there's just an increased likelihood of it. But to know that for every PCE that I could score for him, that possibly offset those ACEs was very reassuring. Because some of those ACEs, we find ourselves in situations and we need to get out of them. So things like having one parent incarcerated, or one parent who abused drugs, or witnessing domestic violence. If you get out of those situations and you subsequently show that child love and support, the chances of them developing problems or negative effects, health or emotional, mental effects later on, decreases. And again, I know, not an aha moment, but to know that they have actually found that there is a connection between better health, emotional and physical, a lower risk of developing chronic illnesses, immune deficiencies, heart disease. It just tells you how important it is that we educate people. And so it's not only knowing about the risks of trauma, the risks of the effects on us, but also the impact that positivity and positive experiences can have on that. And I have no doubt that just like positive childhood experiences can offset those adverse experiences and make a child more resilient to them, the same goes for adults. So even if we've been through significant trauma and have gone through those devastating effects, the more positivity that we're able to bring into our lives, the more positive changes that we're able to make, the more connections that we're able to make with people. We've talked about this before. It all helps to rewire our brain and combat that trauma and make us better, well-adjusted adults. I think I thought my discussion of this would take a lot longer than it did, guys. what do you think? Is this, it's not a novel concept, right? But I think that, mental health education, community engagement, these are some of the first things that can get cut in a community's or a state's programming. And really, they're so critical. Our children are our future. That statement is 100% true. And the more support that we can give parents, the more support that we can give kids, the better off this next generation is going to be. And I go to kind of what I was talking about the other day with, the difference between seeing a therapist and seeing a trauma-informed therapist. One kind of will just deal with your surface issues or whatever you happen to bring them, and the other one is able to look beyond that to see, well, where did this stuff come from? Is there something underneath that we need to deal with? The same is true as a society. We get focused on our problems here and now, and the longer term gets kind of put on the back burner. Our focus gets a little fuzzy on that of, well, we can deal with that later. The problem is what we do today or what we don't do today is directly going to impact that generation who 10 years from now are going to be the up and coming adults. And so I think in a lot of circumstances, we're short shrifting ourselves by not having the foresight to keep in mind what we're doing today is affecting tomorrow. And as I was thinking about this with the kids, I was thinking about it just in terms of myself and how I deal day to day with what's in front of me. And you try and put in place positive coping skills, practicing gratitude, practicing mindfulness, doing my meditation. And you can get really stuck in everything that is bogging you down today without realizing that those little steps that we are taking are eventually going to add up. And so think about yourself a year from now if you just continue doing this. What's going to be the case then? How am I going to feel then? How am I going to be handling things then? What will my life look like? And it struck me, one of the things Fern and I had spoken about behind the scenes, and she was my guest on What is Trauma that we did this past Saturday. And if you haven't checked out that interview, I would go check it out. It was an excellent talk, speaking about trauma in circumstances that some people may not recognize as actually being trauma. And for her, it took a long time before she realized, yeah, this was actually trauma in my life that I had to deal with. But she said that she was doing a blog at one point, and she committed to practicing gratitude. She kind of ended her blog with 3 things she was grateful for. Sorry, guys, my son is in here. Hang on one second. Okay, I'm back. So I was talking about Fern and her blog and how she was committed to, at the end of her blog, she would do 3 things she was grateful for. And she committed to doing this for 365 days. And this is the first time she had ever embarked on anything like that. And I asked her, I said, well, how did you feel at the end of it? What were things like? And she said, it was like my brain was just rewired. And she recalled a particular incident where, it would have been natural to kind of go to the worst case scenario and catastrophize it like she was, normally want to do. But she found herself looking at the best of the situation and how much worse it could have been. And so it's permanently changed her outlook. And I think it's amazing. And it's just an indication of how much all these little steps that we do can really add up and affect our future selves. And so this goes for not only kids, but also adults. And so the better we get at our positive coping skills, the more resilient we become to the adverse situations that we're just going to face in life. And if we can instill that sort of resilience and elasticity in our kids, the better they are set for adulthood, for being able to deal with situations that come to them. But I'm not 100% sure what you mean. Ben says most of what we refer to as personality is usually protective architecture to keep us safe as children. Um, you know, I would say I degree. I agree to a certain extent. But I do think that there are personality traits of somebody that can just come out regardless, that are just kind of coded in our DNA. There are kids who have gone through sorry for the emergency vehicle sirens. I hope you can't hear that. There are some kids who have just gone through horrendous experiences, and yet they are able to look at the good in things, and they are empathetic beyond belief. So I don't know. I don't know. You're making me think on that, Ben. You're making me think. What do you guys think about these PCEs? Not surprising? I wanted to share with you a few of the individual studies that were done. And I know I kind of mentioned, overall. But here are just a few individual studies and what they found. So In 2019, there was a study that found that the higher PCE scores were linked with lower odds of depression and anxiety, and that the PCE buffered the negative effects of the ACEs in regards to mental health outcomes. So that was focused solely on mental health. In 2020, there was another study that was done, and again, it found the more PCEs that one had, there was decreased depression and PTSD. I'm having trouble with that today. Symptoms, especially with among those with higher ACE scores. So they were really focusing on PCEs versus ACEs and what was the interplay between them, and found that these PCEs really did help to offset these ACEs that people were reporting. Again, another study by Bethel, and discovered that each additional PCE was associated with a significant reduction in depressive symptoms and emotional distress. The PCEs mitigated the impact of the ACEs. And study after study that was done just confirmed all of this. And then I think it was, a later study where they were looking at the health, the physical health of the PCEs, and finding that the higher PCE scores related with better adult health, lower instances of chronic conditions such as obesity and cardiovascular risk. PCEs again buffered the adverse effects of ACEs on physical health. So study after study after study is showing this. And it looks like we have a very quiet chat today, guys. I don't know if most of you are just listening or if this isn't a topic that you have much to say on. Again, not a novel concept, but I thought since we had addressed ACEs separately in a video, that it was important to look at the flip side of that and the significant impact that PCEs can have on a child's life, and the impact that they can have on lessening the ACEs that occur within that child's life into adulthood. I want to kind of a poor segue, but I found a quote by Gabor Mate, who I just love. And if you've never looked at any of his work, I'm going to type his name here in the comments so you can see. His work on trauma is just second to none. I love listening to him. He presents things in a way that's really understandable and relatable. There are a lot of YouTube videos that he's put out with interviews with various people. So definitely check him out if you're interested in hearing more from an absolute expert. He's a doctor, an MD, and has worked with trauma survivors for a long, long time, and look at the relationship between trauma and illness. And hey, Rick, how you doing? And there was just a quote I saw today by him that struck me, and I wanted to tell you guys all to keep this in mind. Trauma is not what happens to you. Trauma is what happens inside of you as a result of what happens to you. I think that this can go towards helping us not define ourselves by our traumas. It just I don't know why. I don't know why that quote just really grabbed me today, but hey Jana, how are you doing? I know that you are been busy, busy, busy with the house. So best of luck to you for continuing on with that. Guys, if you haven't already, hit that like button before you leave today. I do have a couple more announcements before we go, and if you haven't subscribed already, and if you're watching, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button before you leave. I appreciate it. I wanted to mention that, so we're going to be on again on Friday. Friday is the big book launch fundraiser that I'm having. Thank you to everyone who has donated so far. If you have already donated, if you can't donate, I did do a community post on this, and it's got the link to all the different ways that you can donate. It's also got the link to Friday's fundraiser for the event. If you can share that out on any of your social medias, that would be helpful. I'm really hoping to get a good crowd in for the fundraiser. It is this Friday, yes, August 15th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Planning on being on a couple of hours. It's going to be myself and a whole bunch of other content creators. And to incentivize you a little bit to donate, we have different I would say prizes, but things that you can get in exchange for your donations. Jimena is going to be on, and she's offering up some oracle readings. I'm putting up 5 of my books, so as soon as those are in print, I will autograph them and mail them out to you. It's going to be a couple of months before you actually get it because I don't have them yet, and I don't think I'll have them until about November, but you'll be on my list. We're going to have Guy from Creating Change is going to be on, and he's going to have his guitar. And if you donate, I think it's like $10 or something like that. As long as he knows the song, he'll sing you a song and, play his guitar. And he's absolutely awesome. Ben. You confused me. Thank you for telling me it's the wrong window. So Guy's going to be on doing songs. I think Crystal Phoenix is going to be helping out with the fundraiser, and I think she's got some readings. Zoe from Soul Synchronized Souls podcast. It's Synchronized Souls podcast. Her email had slipped around, but Synchronized Soul podcast. And she does various types of readings, but she's going to be, she's offered up to do some readings, past, present, future oracle readings. And Sam of After the Bars, he's been a guest on here as well. He's going to be on, and he's going to bring up some of his artwork. So if there's something that you want him to draw, if it's and we'll get all the amounts out, but X amount for a simple drawing. If you want something that's a little more complex or something that you can actually use for a tattoo, he is a tattoo artist, it'll be, a different price. He can, add all the coloring in and that, and he can scan it and send it to you. Or if you want the signed original mailed to you, you'll work that out with Sam. And we're just going to have some fun. It's going to be ask me absolutely anything, $5 donation, any question in the universe about whatever you want to know. and I'll answer. Most likely. If for whatever reason I can't answer publicly, I'll answer you privately. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that I really wouldn't be, willing to say on my YouTube channel, but just in case, I'll put the caveat out there, right? So it just would be a great time. Somebody recommended doing karaoke. I have no idea how to do that. So if somebody comes on and has the skills to be able to play music and have us sing songs as we go along, we might be able to do that. I think somebody else recommended doing some games of some sort. And so I think we might play some games if our chat gets a little slow. Just going to have a whole bunch of people on and just hanging out and having a good time. So regardless of whether or not you can post, regardless of whether or not you can donate, I encourage you, just please come join us. It should be an absolutely good time. And then Saturday, we'll be back on for our regular live at 3 p.m. I was going to be talking about witnessing trauma and some of the latest research that's been done in that area. I know that we've covered, bystanders before, but this is just a little bit more specific in terms of like bystander PTSD and some of the recent studies that have been done in it, and the differences that what they call, direct trauma versus indirect trauma. So the trauma that occurred, this is using their language. So set aside what I just said with Gabor, right? So the trauma that you're involved in versus the trauma that you witnessed, the beating that you took versus the violence that you witnessed, that sort of distinction. And the differences in brain chemistry that they've figured out. And so it's really interesting, and some of the thoughts that they have in terms of how to better treat people based on the different types of trauma that they've suffered. So with that, I think we're going to end a little bit early today. I thought the PCEs would take me a little longer, but I guess it just didn't. That must have meant I was fairly well organized with it, or I just didn't have as much to say. I don't know. So thanks for dropping by, guys. I appreciate it. I've closed all the windows so that we didn't have too much ambient noise, and it is getting a little hot in here now. So I'm going to head back down to my lower level and continue doing my day work in the evening, unfortunately. But I hope to see you all on Friday. I will be reposting again just to kind of remind everybody, probably either tomorrow or Friday morning. And if you happen to be in anybody else's lives where you think the people might be interested in just dropping by and hanging out with us, whether or not you think they might want to donate, I would absolutely love if you can, just share out the link and share out the message of what we're about and what I'm trying to accomplish with this book, and why it's so important that I get to this book launch, because I really want to be able to speak at the conference there. It is 6:45 here now. I'm on Eastern Standard Time. So everything that I always mention is going to be Eastern Standard Time, so New York City time. I am about 60, 70 miles from the Central Line. Goes right down Lake Michigan. It cuts Lake Michigan in half, the Central Time Zone, Eastern Time Zone thing. So, yep. The fundraiser is Friday, so in 2 days, Friday at 7 p.m. And you can look at my community post. I've got all the information there, as well as the link there. And if you can share that out, that would be absolutely fabulous. And we're just hoping to have a good crowd. even if the dollars don't add up, guys, I just hope we have, a good crowd just to sit and relax and chill, not talking about trauma, not talking about any heavy stuff, just enjoying ourselves and having a fun show. Usually it's only on Laugh Saturdays that we get that. So this will kind of be a nice mid-month break from our regular trauma-related topics. So I hope to see you all there. Please remember, you are valuable, you are worthy, and you are loved just the way you are for who you are. So hugs and love from me. I will see you on Friday at 7 p.m. for the fundraiser. Surviving Together, Never Alone. Enjoy the outro, guys.
Through the fire, through the rain, we have walked through endless pain. But we stand, we rise again. Stronger now, we break the chain. Surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, together we shine. Every tear, every scar tells the story of who